Good morning, students. I hope you all understood the last two units. Today, we will see the first unit in school management. Introduction to school management. In this video, we will be learning about types of educational management and principles of educational management. After going through this video, you will be able to identify the different types of educational management and list out the principles of educational management. Types of educational management. The types of educational management can be classified into two types, type A and type B. Under type A, there are two types, decentralized management, centralized management. Under type B, autocratic educational management, democratic educational management, laissez-faire educational management. First, we will see decentralized educational management. What is decentralized? That is, it is not centralized. The power is not in one hand. The power is being shared. You know, the basic principle of democracy is to share the powers, right? You remember that? So in our constitution, we have three lists. Do you remember that? Can you say what are the three lists? Is union list, state list, and concurrent list. Hope you remember that. So can you say education comes under which list? Yes, concurrent list. So what does it mean? Concurrent list means both the state and the central have power to make policies, to amend some rules, right? To frame their curriculum. Okay. So in a democratic country like India, the education administration is decentralized with sharing of responsibilities between central, state, and local bodies. So we'll see what are the advantages of decentralized educational management. By decentralizing educational management, you can encourage local people to take initiative. For example, when there is a vacancy in the school, local school, the teachers are being appointed through PTAs, Parent Teachers Associations. Is it? Do you know that? Yes. Local initiative is encouraged. Encourage participation of people at different levels. Decisions can be made quickly. Local problems can be solved with care in a democratic way. Centralized educational management. The name itself says the power is not shared, it is being centralized. It is in one hand, right? Unlike decentralized educational management, in centralized educational management, the power is with one head, that is from the top level. The power flows from top to bottom, and there is no sharing of power and responsibility. So advantages of centralized educational management are: it brings discipline in the cadre and uniformity in rules and regulations. Plenty of resources will be available, and hence there will be scope for expansion and experimentation. Disadvantages: control and coordination becomes a major problem. Local needs and aspirations will not be reflected in the process of educational management. Autocratic administration. This is characterized by authoritarian attitude of the leader irrespective of the centralized or decentralized system. The leader dictates his own terms to the members and assigns the task without consulting them. He selects subordinates and seeks unquestioned conformity. So in autocracy, the state assumes the highest authority and interest of the individual is made subservient to that of state. All aspects of education, namely curriculum, examination, are controlled by the central authority. Benefits of autocratic management. In this management, the decision making becomes easy and quick. Work process goes on in an organized manner, streamlined work process, absolute control, focused targets, close supervision, maintains order and discipline. Benefits of autocratic management. In this management, The decision making becomes easy and quick. Work process goes on in an organized manner, streamlined work process, absolute control, focused targets, close supervision, maintains order and discipline. Democratic administration. This is characterized by giving emphasis to group action and decisions. The leaders are free to assume power with acceptance of the group, and they do not dominate but seek cooperation. So it is based on the principle of cooperation, sharing of responsibility, equality, justice, and developing leadership qualities through staff meeting, clubs, and general body meetings. It prepares students for citizenship and gives them an opportunity to grow. Advantages of democratic administration. This type of administration permits and encourages all employees to participate in decision making. As the decisions are made by the employees, it brings greater commitment in their work that leads to increased job satisfaction and productivity. Decisions made by the group are more effective. This encourages workers' ideas, suggestions, and creations. As a result, there is personal and professional growth is there among the employee. There is a good relationship between employee and leader. Laissez-faire administration. In this type of administration, complete freedom is given to the group on individual decisions without the participation or direction of the leader. The leader don't take part in decision making process. There is a complete freedom among the group members and they decide on their own. And then the leader is a supplier of materials but not an active participant in decision making. That means he provides what are the needs of the group members. He provides the materials that are needed to carry out the work, but he never takes part in the decision making. Advantages and disadvantages of laissez-faire administration. Advantages. This type can prompt creativity. It helps in the creativity of the employees. Staff may feel empowered as they have full freedom. They feel that they are empowered. They have the freedom to work as they wish. Disadvantages. More people involved, so there is a greater risk of losing control. In the decision making process, more people are involved, so there is a risk of losing control. Staff may feel unguided and lack of motivation. Now we will see the principles of educational administration. Two principles. One is principle of autocratic administration, the other one is principle of democratic administration. Principles of autocratic educational administration: planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, and coordinating. First one is planning. So whatever we do, before doing that we have to plan, isn't it? So planning is very important thing in any administration. Planning follows a dictum: think before you act. So before you get into action, you should think. So planning foresees the future and focuses attention on choosing a course of action to meet unforeseen events or problems. So planning is not only seeing about the future, but also should see what will happen, that is unexpected things sometimes may happen. So we should plan for that also. So planning foresees the future and focuses attention on choosing a course of action to meet unforeseen events or problems. So here planning follows a formula, that is 4 W's and 1 H. What is 4 W? What ought to be done? Who should do it? Where is action necessary? Why should it be done? So you should ask these 4 questions before you plan. So what ought to be done? Who should do it? Where is action necessary? Why should it be done? And 1H, how should it be done? So you have to ask all these questions before you plan. Okay. Next is after planning you have to organize. So organizing, it is a mechanism through which goals set in a plan are accomplished. Organizing consists of division of labor. That is, you have to divide the work. You have to divide the work and give to the employees. Organizing consists of division of labor. A good organization demands establishing relationship between the broken parts of the workload. So here you have divided the work into different parts and you have assigned the work to different people. So after that there should be an organized manner. It has a continuity. The work should be reach the goal. So in short, organization is a man-made system designed to combine a complex of man, material, machine and other resources into an efficient, effective and viable enterprises. So you have to coordinate man, material and machine and other resources so that you can achieve the goal. Third one is staffing. This consists of the right selection of appropriate person to carry out the jobs smoothly. So when you are recruiting the people, you should see their qualification, whether the people is able to do all these things. So right selection of appropriate person to carry out the jobs smoothly. And not only recruiting, it tries to foresee further manpower needs and tries to develop the persons employed in the organization. Sometimes you may have to change the pattern of teaching. So you have to train the teachers. When there is a change in the curriculum or method of teaching, you have to give training to the teachers, is it? So in the same way, so you have to foresee the future manpower needs and should give them a training. Next is directing. Here the manager directs efforts of the staff towards common goal. He acts as a leader of the group to do so, and he communicates, guides and oversees what is to be done and also provides a climate for developing his subordinates' capabilities. So here the leader directs the efforts of the staff and he leads the group and he communicates the rules and regulations, guides them, oversees them so that the work is being done in a proper way. Next one is controlling. Any plan will be executed successfully when it is controlled. So controlling means reviewing the performance of the employees in the light of the target of the plan. If there is any deviation from the planned objective, the manager puts things right by taking proper corrective actions. Next is coordinating. So coordinating is another aspect of management or administration. It's equal to cooperation. If the management should seek the cooperation of all the staff members, only then we can achieve the goal. So coordinating is another important aspect of management process. Of democratic educational administration. There are 9 principles in democratic administration. First one is principle of sharing responsibility, principle of equality, principle of freedom, principle of leadership, principle of justice, principle of recognition, principle of cooperation, principle of flexibility and principle of professional growth of the teachers. So in a democracy, sharing of power is the basic concept of democracy, isn't it? The first principle of democratic administration is decentralization of power and sharing of experiences. With this philosophy, the headmaster should be a democratic and he should respect the ideas, suggestions given by the staff, students and parents. We'll see the different principles. Principles of sharing responsibility. According to John Dewey, democracy is sharing of experiences. In a school run on democratic lines, the head of the institution should always adopt the principle of democracy and delegate his powers, responsibilities and duties among the staff and students. He should work as a guide, friend and philosopher and oversee functions of various personnel and put them in the right track. So as head of the institution, he should be friendly and he should share the responsibilities to the staff and students and he should see whether they are doing it in a correct way. Next one is principle of equality. In a democratic administration, this one who looks upon his colleagues as his equal and takes decisions in consultation with his colleagues. So, as a democratic leader, he should treat everyone equally and he should take decisions with the consultation of the colleagues. Here, equality refers to recognizing. So, recognizing is this teaching staff find his or her potential and treat him with respect. So, recognizing the staff and their talents, and you should treat them as equal. Next one is principle of freedom. So, enough freedom should be given to all to exercise their powers and talents. The power of analytical thinking, creativity, and innovative ideas, important requisite for democracy, can only be cultivated by stakeholders in an atmosphere of freedom. Only when there is a freedom, you can exercise your talent. You can bring out the talents out, isn't it? Without freedom, you cannot do anything. So the headmaster should give due recognition to innate talents on the part of the teachers and students, and encourage them to offer suggestions, comments to bring about healthy changes. Next one is principle of leadership. Leadership is not confined to the head of the institution only. So it's not only the headmaster is the leader, he should also cultivate this quality among his teachers and students. In a way, the headmaster leads his school. For providing wise leadership, he must have the leadership qualities. Wherever he cannot lead, he will allow others to lead. In this way, administration can run smoothly and effectively. Principle of justice. In a democratic setup, all individuals should be treated on equal footing. There is no favoritism or partiality. The head should be totally impartial to everybody. As a head, if he follows the principle of justice, most of the problems of the school will automatically solved. Principle of recognition. Nothing will more encourage a man or a woman or a boy or a girl to a greater effort than an encouraging recognition of good work done, of sincere effort made, of good qualities shown. So the headmaster should recognize the teacher's work, the students' work. So a word of appreciation will encourage them to do the work in a good way. Principle of cooperation. Another important principle of democratic administration is principle of cooperation. The head of the institution should seek the cooperation of everybody in running the school. Without the cooperation of the teachers or parents or students, you cannot run the school smoothly. So he should seek the cooperation of everybody, and he should understand that running a school is not a one-man job. It requires the cooperation of all concerned. Next one is principle of flexibility. The school administrator should be rigid. He should be flexible in his approach so as to accommodate day-to-day changes in the administration of the school. So in the interest of the school, pupil and teacher, the head should reconsider his decisions and plan for smooth running of the institution. So he should be flexible. Next is principle of professional growth of the staff. Efficiency of a school depends upon efficient staff. Efficiency of staff depends upon their quest for professional growth. Therefore, the teacher must keep themselves abreast of latest development in content and pedagogy by attending in-service training programs, orientation programs arranged by the department. This will add to the quality of teaching staff. As a head of the school, the headmaster should make efforts to promote professional growth of teachers. So all these above said principles of administration should be followed in a democratic administration. Practical measures for democratic school management. So there are different approaches that should be followed in a democratic administration. So first thing is staff council. The basic objective of staff council meeting is to plan, monitor and execute institutional plan of the school. So meeting of the staff council should be done frequently, and it should be discussed students' day-to-day problems, academic planning, administrative problems, school welfare programs, community and parent support, school supervision and inspection, and related activities can be discussed, and decisions should be taken collectively. The staff council is the one practical measure to solve the problems of the school in a democratic way. Second one, students' council. This is the most important measure in a democratic administration of school. The main objective of student council is providing opportunity for students to participate effectively in the school government. So it is a forum for students to express their views and feelings without any fear in the interest of the organization. By practicing these measures, students get an opportunity to govern themselves under guidance of their staff members. Staff meeting. Staff council includes senior members of the staff, whereas staff meeting is a broader forum which includes all the staff members. So in a staff council, the senior members are included, whereas in staff meeting all the staff members will be included. So it's a broader forum which includes all the staff members. Normally all matters pertaining to school, that is institutional plan, examination schedule, co-curricular activities, indiscipline of students, will be discussed in the staff meeting. Staff meeting is the best forum to make staff feel that the school belongs to them and they are running the school. So each teacher should feel that I have been consulted. This is my job and I have to do it and I will do it. They should be created. Next one is special committee of people. In addition to student council, special committee should be constituted, duly nominated or elected by the people to carry out special functions such as operation of special feast funds, celebration of festivals, celebration of school day and other important days, debates, dramatics and other kinds of extracurricular activities should be carried out, consulted and carried out. So